Hanji, and welcome to another episode of the Not in the Clouds podcast with Gyaan Singh, Ardaas Singh, and Sarab Singh. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Sri Akal.
The weather's looking up. The sun's coming out.
You look like the sun today.
What's been going on? What have you guys been reading, consuming?
What day is it today? Wednesday. Yesterday was their birthday, and the reason why we remember Gyani Singh is because they're writing history at a very unique period. So a lot of the times we hear of Ratan Singh Ji Pangu, who write their Panth Prakash, and then Gyani Singh Ji also writes the Panth Prakash. Later on, we call it the Twarik Panth Prakash, and I was reading into that, and it spoke about something called the Khalsa Tract Society. And essentially, it was talking about how Singh Sabha Lahore, so those that don't know, there was two Singh Sabha movements. This is talking about the Singh Sabha of Lahore. And they're starting to do prachar, and this begins in 1902. And this is essentially in 1902 where something called the Chief Khalsa Diwan comes into practice, or comes into it manifests itself. And essentially it goes into what their main objectives were. But unfortunately, Gyani Singh Ji, he's given the dilasa of we will purchase the rights of the Panth Prakash off of you, and he's given like we promise you this if you do this, essentially an ultimatum, I guess, that we will buy the rights of the Panth Prakash off of you, and we promise we have the resources, we have the money as well to actually publish your work, which at this point in time it hasn't happened so far. And essentially his work has been essentially bought by them. And later on, without going into too much detail, we could do a whole session on this. But essentially after that is being bought off of him. After that, when first they actually say we're not going to publish it for a long time, so at this point he's quite worried, and it doesn't get published. And then when he realized actually what has happened, it actually he writes about this later on, of how much it has hurt his heart, is essentially they bought the rights of his work, and then the version that they wanted to print, they made loads of changes to it. And the reason why we mention that is because slowly then in subsequent editions, luckily later on, I can't remember who it was, but somebody from Harmandir Sahib, Sevadar of Harmandir Sahib, he actually takes the original works and publishes them later on, the original versions. But those versions that are then published by the Khalsa Tract Society and Chief Khalsa Diwan, they remove all mentions of things that they felt weren't aligned with what they were thinking at the time. So originally what were 28 qubits about the Namtari Panth, because for those that don't know, Gyani Ji actually comes to Sri Paini Sahib, meets Guru Ram Singh, and actually he writes about, I have met them, and at this time from the Akal Takat, letters are sent out everywhere that Namtaris are not Sikhs of the Guru. And he says, I want to go there and confirm this for myself. And he writes himself that these Namtari Singhs are the Sikh of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. They are the Sikh of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And slowly, these 28 qubits of he writes from his eyewitness accounts. He also has the eyewitness accounts from the Malerkotla Sakha, where the Singhs are blown up by cannons. Those 28 qubits slowly are removed. I think right now in the current latest versions, maybe there's 1 or 2 qubits that are remaining.
Do we have those saved somewhere? Are they accessible?
Yes. So I we'll put that in the description. So we have that in the library. They've also been translated into English as well. So Maharaj Bir Singh Ji, they commissioned those to be translated by Harbhajan Singh, who is a professor in the University of Delhi.
I've been reading this book called The Daily Stoic, and it's really cool. And I do this randomly, so it's Stoic teaching, so mainly from like meditations of Marcus Aurelius and other such Stoic writers. But what I do is when I've got a minute or two, it's written in days. So it will start off with the 1st of January, and it'll go all the way to the 31st of December. But what I do, I just pick a random page. And what I'm going to do today is pick a random page. It says flexibility of the will. And this is not planned at all. So I'm going to read it out. Remember that to change your mind and to follow someone's correction are consistent with a free will. For the actions is yours alone to fulfill its purpose in keeping with your impulse and judgment, and yes, with your intelligence. And it's really cool. It goes into further, so that the person who's put this together is a guy called Ryan Holiday. So living in free will, you're able, how nowadays people like to put things in boxes and say, well, you believe this, so you can't believe anything else. That kind of negates free will.
I really like that. Not being opinionated or like hard line. This is the truth, isn't it? So I've been watching a Western, and it's really interesting because this whole concept of manifest destiny and how they were so sold on the fact that we have the right to conquer this land at the cost of the natives that lived there, and the natives were treated so inhumanely to the point that they were just seen as animals, or even as pests, really, because it became an all-out sort of extinction act, where it was their divine right to rule this land and to tame it, and that concept of manifesting this destiny which God had given them. I mean, they forcefully manifested their quote-unquote destiny. But what do you think of the concept of manifestation?
I think sometimes it can become a realization once you've thought about it so much.
Thoughts, beliefs, and actions, when those three things align, then realistically everything that we see in this world that's physically tangible has been a thought at some point, and then it was manifested into the physical realm.
When you leave the house, for whatever garden you're going, so whatever purpose you're going for, the thought that you leave the house with is what will happen. And if you're going for such Bashi's darshan, or you're going for to the Gurdwara, and you're thinking that I'm going to get this level of enlightenment, or even thinking about how much Kara Prasad you're going to get, for example. So, Gyaan Singh ji, in Sikhi, do we believe in manifestation?
When you were saying now, before you leave your home, about the intention you leave with and how that has an overall impact, I think where this gets confused and where a lot of people, when we read Gurbani in parts and don't read it as a whole, in terms of, let's even just take Japji as a basis. Second Pauri, Sache Paatshah ji is talking about the concept of hukum. Even in the first Pauri, Sache Paatshah is talking about the concept of hukum. That if you understand the concept of hukum, then you've understood everything that is playing out, which we call parna, and which we know as parna. When, like, for example, when somebody passes away, we say e parnasi. Or when, for example, somebody gets married, we say o nada sanjogsi. So, okay, let's take it from there. How do we differentiate the two? There's one thing where we're saying nothing is manifested, everything that is happening is according to the will of the Almighty. And then the other aspect where there's this element of we need to create action. And I think the whole purpose of that is where Sadhguruji says, Home dirag roga hai, daru pi isma hai. Where there's an element of home where we're in this duality, because only within duality can you have a conversation. For example, all three of us are speaking right now. We have to have three separate identities or three separate minds to actually have this conversation. Right now we have the circle of me, where within that is me. Around that you have the circle of the Guru. And whatever vichar we're doing is about that differentiation between me and the Guru. And then around that is this whole concept of the One, or what we want to call Hukam, the Almighty, this ultimate understanding of what we call Brahm Gyaan. Within that first concept, in the Dasam Granth, Sadhguruji talks about the mindset of Harnakush when he is with his wife, and how that caused the birth of Prahalad. And it quite clearly states, without me going into too much detail, based on the age of or anybody that's listening, but it's talking about that when they are together, and at that moment, he is thinking about his enmity towards Vishnu, or you can say his enmity towards Parameshwar. And Dasampashi is saying, because he had this in his mind at that time or at that moment, this is what caused that manifestation, or that set in place, that then even whether positively or negatively, you're still thinking, right? You're still thinking about Parameshwar, and that's what caused Parameshwar's own Bhagat to come within his house. So I think that's a perfect example of saying that manifestation is real, of what is within your mind is what ends up, what becomes essentially within your life.
If we even look at when Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, "Aakhe manghe dehe dehe daat kare daatar," people beg and pray, give to us, and the great giver gives his gifts. So Akal Purakh showers his blessings. So what offerings can we place before him, where we might even get the vision of their darbar, and what words can we speak to evoke that love from such Pashaji? And then in the end, they give, that their contemplation on that and the manifestation of that, in my opinion, it's Amrit Villa Sachanao Vadiyai Vichar. On the manifestation, so you get the question to be able to manifest what you want, not even what you want. At that time, you're one with Akal Purakh. As you were saying, there's no duality there.
Later on, even it just related to this concept, it says, De da de, le de thakapai. That even that we keep on taking, even the receiver gets tired. And this is where it relates back to this, is where you receive so much. And we see this right now in life, right? We see people that we think are so successful, whether monetarily or otherwise, whether we feel people are intelligent. Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Bani, Man meh chittavao chittvani, uddam karao uthaneet, har kirtan ka aharo, har deho nanak ke meet. Where I think, Sarapaji, what you touched on, which I think was kind of what was dwelling in my mind, and it's an answer to that, is this concept of where there's this separation, the importance of Ardaas within that manifestation of where you want to end up. Because I think those, I guess a modern word for it is those affirmations to the Almighty is what eventually creates what you see. Even elsewhere in Gurbani, Sadhguruji says, Sukhiye ko pekhe sab sukhiya, meaning the people that are happy, they perceive the whole world as happy. And we see that all the time. We see that within ourselves, that when we're happy as people, all of a sudden life is great. The whole world is great. We forget that there's wars happening. We forget that actually there are people suffering. Rogi ke pane sab rogi. That the person that is actually afflicted mentally or afflicted within their mind, according to them, everybody else is a rogi as well. They become very nihilistic. So Sadhguruji is talking about these concepts that I think are quite discussed in modern culture and what is the current conversation in culture right now. But Sadhguruji has touched upon these things, I think, in a very beautiful way. It's just how you decipher those.
You know where they say, Vinito dho rije mangana, sir dukhande dukh. Now, I've never understood why you'd ask for dukh. You want the latest sofa, you want the latest this and that, you know what I mean? What?
But maybe that's the thing, that within this rat race, we try to manifest things. And within the rat race concept, or with what we thought would lead to our happiness, we get hit with this ultimate hammer over our heads where we realize actually it's not going to lead to my happiness. And then at that moment, when you realize all these things I've been chasing for many, many years, it's not going to lead to my ultimate peace, then it's a tough thing to swallow. Like I was listening to Sant Indrajit Singh Ji, and they're saying the biggest prapti in Sikhi is samajho mandiya kagarta. To translate that the biggest aim of Sikhi, if you want to understand it, is the centeredness and the control over the mind.
You tell me how hard that is. You sit down even for 10 minutes Nam Simran. Your mind reaches places where you can't even imagine it can reach. Your mind can be sitting in the center of London, and it could reach Manchester, and it can reach Scotland in mere seconds.
Bhai Gurdas ji talks about when Guru Nanak Dev Ji goes to Baghdad. And when Sadhguru Ji is in Baghdad, they meet Pir Dastagir. Essentially, he's talking about how the Pir Dastagir was talking to Guru Nanak Dev Ji and saying, who is more powerful, the Pir or the Fakir? And during this debate, it says, people say there's these 7 heavens and these 7 hells. And Sadhguru Ji is saying that whatever you want to see, and it reminded me of Guru Ram Singh Ji's Hukamnama, that I'm only going to believe it once I see it. And Sadhguru Ji says, well, we can talk about it as much as we want. Let me show it to you. And it talks about Guru Nanak Dev Ji then showing Pir Dastagir. Within this blink of an eye, Guru Nanak Dev Ji vanishes himself and them, in it says in the translation, they melted into thin air. And it's this manifestation where essentially what it's trying to get at is when you go to your Guru, when you have these shanke or you have these questions about what is my ultimate in my life, what should be my ultimate. And here is basically saying that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is there to show you. You don't need the debate.
I think within all of this, it's careful what you wish for, isn't it? In that,
Wow.
one of the things behind manifestation is a deep desire. Manifestation could take form of anything. I want this nice car. I want this nice house. I want this beautiful wife. I want this perfect family. And you could try and make every effort to try and manifest that. And in the Western world, you look at things like you could put a mood board together, get snippets of like the kind of doors that you want on your house, the kind of garden you want to shape, and you could have it all on this wall in front of you. And every single day you could look at this board and think, one day I'm going to work towards this. And make it my reality. Buying the nicest car comes with a price in that you worry about its care, its upkeep, then it comes with a lifestyle. And so all of these things come as baggage as well. What we're talking about in the spiritual sense is become the manifestation, or the desire is to become one with the Almighty. And let's break that down. Like why do we want that as a desire? One, because we were told that's how you're going to get peace in this world. And then secondly, when reading history, reading about these spiritually enlightened people who have been there, trying to emulate how they got there. Like Bhai Kanhaiya again was somebody who manifested, and it's not one of those things that just happens overnight, right? It's a process. And there's the book that you referenced, Gyaan, about karmi apo apne ke neda ke dur. That for me sounds like the law of attraction. If you want to be closer to Akal Purakh, to be one with Akal Purakh, then our philosophy says, ape machi machali, ape pani jal, ape jal madakna, ape andar lal. He exists within everything, right? If you're trying to manifest that, then what's stopping us from seeing Akal Purakh inside of the smallest ant or the person that we hate the most? Those are the blockers, and you hit the nail on the head when you said it's our ego. The ego is the one thing that's stopping that realization.
We're not saying that this is something that happens after death, or is this thing that is like this trick that happens, I guess, like this magic trick. And essentially there's a katha, Indra and Virochan. And essentially at this time where they're essentially Prajapati is saying to them that, look, there's too much infighting now between the Dans and the Devta. You go and you need to learn about what is the true self. And they are sent to learn about the true self. And essentially they're sent, and essentially they say, go become students. And they then for some time lead the life of brahmacharis. And Prajapati, essentially the concept of when you would go to your guru, first you would need to do seva if you wanted any knowledge. And they spent many, many years doing seva. cutting the Sakhi short, essentially Indra and Virochan, before he is sent, he is told, do not come back until you have the full answer. And Virochan isn't really told that. And after the first time where they're told, okay, I'm happy with your seva now, I'll give you some knowledge. And their guru is just about to start giving upadesh, and they say that they essentially give them instructions and say, first look into each other's eyes, what do you see? And they saw each other's reflections, and they say, we can see ourselves. And then they say, the body is the Atma. And Virochan, just happy with this, he says, all right, I got my answer. He just legs it. And this is where the Dant Buddhi comes from, the Rakshas Buddhi of thinking, okay, everything is the body. Just please the body, look after the body, give everything the body wants, meaning pleasure-wise as well. Yeah. And that's the ultimate understanding. This is where this comes from. And Indra hears that, and he also legs it. But then on his way back, he thinks, well, that doesn't make sense because the body dies one day. And if the body dies, then that means the Atma dies. So he goes back and he tells his Shankar to his guru. And he says, no, you're on the right track now. That's correct. Even though I wasn't finished before, but stay for a little while longer, continue doing seva, then I'll tell you what the ultimate Atma is. This happens several times, and slowly knowledge is revealed to Indra. And essentially the last thing was that the ultimate understanding is you are the Atma. You are the Brahm. And you have to remember the start of this story was go and receive knowledge that will cease this infighting. Because they were worried that this infighting is happening between the Dans and the Devte. And they saw that only this knowledge of the Atma is going to stop all this fighting. So that when we're saying Nanak Naam, Chaddi Kala, Tere Pane, Sarbat Da Pala, the Naam element here and the Chaddi Kala element here, thinking of Chaddi Kala as always rising, is actually rising to that ultimate understanding of the Naam. And Asapaji will, like you when in Sukhmani Sahib, Naam Tol, Gacha Varna Hoye, meaning that there's nothing else other than this at that moment, and all the fighting stops. But the illusion is so real. And sometimes we attach ourselves to it, whether for the best or for the worst. But I think ultimately it relates back to our karam. But I think we use it so flippantly sometimes that when, for example, somebody never revises for their exam and they flop their exam, they get a U, and then afterwards either the parents, or if the kid's a bit cheeky, the kid saying, oh, te mere karma si. But at this point, I think it's more around what we're talking about now, which is manifestation. He manifested his you by not revising, right? Yeah. And even when we hear somebody, they say, oh, menu sugar. And then 5 minutes later, you see them downing like 5 laddus.
Or even months before that, manifesting 15 jalebia.
Manifesting 15 jalebia in their stomach. And then later on, someone's saying, oh, main ta apna sehat da bahut dhyan rakhda. I really looked after my body. But did we really?
If everything is in God's control, this illusion is in God's control, right? Why do you then do seva? Why do you do charity work? Why do you help anyone if everything is meant to be the way it is anyway? Yes, they're in love with Akal Purakh and divinity and oneness. However, even though that they're in love with that, the Maya is also a part of that game, and that is also something that they love. So it's the Maya being like everyone who's in a struggling time or in hard times where they need help and they need that seva, they need that charity, and that they're also in love with it. So there's no distinction, no differentiation. That illusion is also part of everything that I love. So that illusion is everything that is created within that illusion. Therefore, I am there to help that situation. I am there to work and do seva and help those people who need that charity.
Bhimchand has been pierced by 100 arrows, and he's in the battlefield and he's bleeding out, but he's not dying. but he's in a huge amount of pain. Bhim Chand does urge to Akal Purakh ki, what's going on? I've been pierced by 100 arrows. How come I'm not dead? And so Akal Purakh says, let's look back at, your previous lives. And this is probably, where this thing about, mere karma sigi, that's why we kind of picked it up. But I agree with you, Gyaan, in that karam isn't something that, and again, from Sadhguru Jagjit Singh's Upadesh, it's if a farmer plants seeds in December, 6 months down the line, what he's planted is what he's gonna reap. But anyway.
My point was that, you still continue playing within the play, even though that the play is rigged.
I don't think the play is rigged. I think there's a sense here where what we're saying is there's this expanse that exists around us.
Yep.
We say that we exist. But I think this is where our brain stops working, where we talk about the concept of one. Because everything that we know is within duality. This is why when we think of one, our brain stops working. And this is where, where, for example, we say all the time, my hand is hurting. So then that means we know in that moment that the hand is not mine. We say at a moment, my head is hurting. At that moment, we say, then we know that our head is not ours, right? When we slowly start realizing that actually everything that we're seeing is one. So at that moment, when you start contemplating on that, what is good and bad? Because these complaints that we have are very subjective. Because for somebody else, they may be in a different situation, looking at you from their perspective and thinking that's fine. Right?
It's like you've manifested a reality that probably doesn't exist.
Yeah, so the Maya element here isn't saying that moves us away from the one. Everything is the one. You can't even think of anything that isn't the one. It's only us that think like that.
If you're fragmented in yourself, and you've fragmented yourself to the extent that you're in this duality, you've even gone beyond the dual, and you've gone to like multiple fragments of yourself, then how can you be at peace? Because you're one role for somebody, you're a different role for somebody else. You're not really that.
This is the perfect question, I think, is only once you start thinking that, what am I? Who am I? Because do you know those questions that you're saying is that, how do I, what is it then, right? Because I think this is the thing of a jigyasu, where you do everything, and in your life you see everything, and you said, actually, I've realized that all of these different things I'm chasing, they're not actually helping me at all. And I think at that moment, and this where it links back to your karam, where there is going to be elements in your life which aren't in your control. But when we hear Mahapurkhato, is that this isn't everything though. There is going to be things that are outside of your control, and your life isn't going to be at balance at all times. According to, even then, it's your own subjective reality. But fine, even if we say that there's this concept of dukh and sukh, which is very real to us in this moment, the one thing that is something you can make an effort on is your own development and your own growth. And this is where the concept of karam comes in, is over these multiple life forms that we've had, we've collected this dirt essentially over our man. And due to that dirt, we have this ignorance. And then this is where I think, Sarapaji, you were saying around, why do we do seva? Why do we do Nam Simran? Is the Jigyasu realizes from the instruction of their guru, is if I want to actually understand something more, slowly, I'm going to have to remove this dirt.
I don't think it matters. I get that everything's preordained. Not everything, but those things have been put as mark points, as in checkpoints in your life, right? I get it. But at the end of the day, I think if you're going to go through life and you're going to understand that everything is taken care of, obviously with a little bit of effort from yourselves, a little bit of, thought behind things, and using some form of common sense which you've picked up along the way, I think those things don't matter, because you will always, I'm taking my life for example now. I personally feel that there's times at work where I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what you know, what path to take or what answer to give at some point. And sometimes I just, within myself, I forget myself. And I'm not explaining that well enough, but I believe that whatever I say next is divine intervention. Because it just doesn't.
Do you know, like how in America they have on the back of their cars they have bumper stickers, and like the most famous one is "Jesus take the wheel." You are the walking, talking version of "Jesus take the wheel."
But it's so true. Sometimes I just think, okay, that I've never had that line of processing in my brain before, and it's just come out, and you can't take credit for that, although at work you do, and you say give me a pay rise, but but if everything is preordained, then even if you go to that extent, then even what you're saying, what your action is, whether it's a fork in the road, whether you've been given a decision, that decision is already preordained. So I don't think that matters. What I think we're talking about here is manifestation of. So you can, to me, there's two types of manifestation. So first manifestation is materialistic things. So stuff that, I want a bigger house, I want a bigger car, all the things that you've mentioned before, Asa. The second form of manifestation is that, you want to manifest your enlightenment or your coming out of duality or coming out of that two thinking. And I think it's common amongst most religious texts is that there is a form of non-duality. That's where I am in life generally. I think there's two things. Either you manifest something materialistic, which I think those Riddhyan, Siddhyan that Guru Nanak Dev Ji mentioned in Japji Sahib are obtainable. However, the manifestation of non-duality for me is something that, again, what Gyaan Singh said, is where that pause happens, where you're like, what do I say? Because there is no answer, because there is nothing and there is everything.
If the universe or the divine or the Almighty wanted, right now, we could become one. We could like skip the whole life journey thing and become one with the Almighty with no effort at all.
A lot of us don't know, but when Sadhguruji actually goes to do the Siddh Gosht and Sadhguruji is talking to the Siddhs, we don't know about it. Sadhguruji is actually only 13 at that time.
Oh, wow.
And if you read the Siddh Gosht, it does not seem like that's a 13-year-old speaking. And we know this, and it comes up several times in our history in terms of where is that information coming from. And when the Siddhs start showing Sadhguruji these Riddhyan, Siddhyan, they start floating in front of him. This is where the Bir Ras comes from. Sadhguruji grabs them and sits them down, saying, I don't care about any of this stuff. Saying, sit down, let's have a conversation. What am I going to do with you floating in front of me? How's that benefiting me in any way? How is that showing me that this is for my ultimate benefit? But about manifestation, what do we ultimately want? Do we want all of these powers? What are we going to do with those powers? But maybe something that has, or definitely something that has meaning is this journey. And maybe the power of it and what gives it meaning is the journey. That if it was something that happened in a click of a finger, then maybe this thing that we love, which is harjas, that wouldn't exist. How could we do this? Yeah, how could we do this satsang? Where in this moment in time, three of us are sitting here and we're trying to do vichar on what is the truth. This wouldn't exist. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'm very content and happy that this is part of the journey. If this is what it takes, I'm happy, because this makes, in this moment in time, it makes me feel content, and it makes me feel that that there is meaning.
Through this process of contemplation and realizing all of the things that we've discussed so far, yes, there is this ultimate guiding, supporting, benevolent energy which is always there, but only unreachable because of our own ego. And the journey to being able to realize that and contemplate it is the journey of a bhagat or an ashik, and that bhakti movement then it is the journey and the fruit. And if you just got it straight away, then there was no point like you didn't really live it, and you didn't get the flavor of it. So that makes sense within this context. But for somebody who's not maybe not maybe as exposed to these spiritual concepts, how could they manifest peace in their life?
Firstly, I would simplify my thought process. So when you think of something, it's often, you think that person's thinking that of me, or this is happening, or if I don't go to work tomorrow, I'm not going to get paid, and then I won't be able to pay my mortgages, and then you spiral out of your thoughts, spiral out of control. Now, if you simplify your thought process, firstly, so you negate everything and just say that, okay, I'm going to take each breath as it comes, not even each minute, each breath as it comes. Now, if you take each breath and just contemplate on breathing in and breathing out, all the other thoughts cease to exist because you're focusing on just your breath. That's something that I've learnt along the way, and it's when I can find myself anxious thinking about a whole heap of things, I focus on breath.
It's such a funny thing, something that just came in my mind recently. Khalsa soi jo kara nit jang. Meaning that the Khalsa is the one that is doing this daily. And to be honest, I was going to say just between us again, but that's not true. I was speaking to Subhaji, and I was saying, Subhaji, in some moments I feel I've made progress, and in other moments I feel that I'm even more behind than when I started, and I'm fed up. मैं थक गया. I'm had enough fighting with my mind. Next time I see Sadhguruji, I'm going to do Arj. Okay, Sadhguruji, this disease that I have in my mind, just get rid of it. And Subhaji laughed at me. And this is why you need to speak to people that have more experience than you. And they said, Gyaan, all of these people in the world are doing Ardaasa for their minds to work correctly. And your mind is working correctly. And you're going to ask for an aspect of it to be taken out. You should be happy that you're mentally stable and your body's working correctly.
That whole gratitude piece in being able to manifest peace in your life. If we look at Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji, at this point when they're going through the Machiwara jungle, they don't have any jode on their feet. Their busted are ripped. They're at a stage in their life where from a worldly perspective, they've lost everything, and even in that state of being at night in the jungle, they're appreciative of the fact that if they have nothing, they still have the love inside of them for a Akal Purakh. Tudh bin rog rajaiyan da oddan nag nivasa de rehna, ki without you, without your love, palaces and all of those comforts are nothing. Appreciation, being able to, the core of what you said, Sarab, being able to slow life down and truly reflect on the fact that I'm alive. That there are a million problems in this world, but appreciating the fact that I've had this opportunity, I've had this breath, and I'm alive, because there are a hell of a lot of people who don't have food security, water security, stability in their life. But we get wrapped up in politics and all of the negatives, and that, I love the first line, or the first couple of lines in Sukhmani Sahib. Simro simra simra sukh pavo. And what is Simran, right? You could be contemplating all of the regrets that you've had in life up until this point, or you could be contemplating all of the love that people have been giving you, and all of the support that people have given you in your life. And it's only when you reflect on the support and the positive things that people have given you in your life that you can be at peace.
Sadhguru Jagadis Singh Ji, many times in a lot of the Upadesh, they would mention Jis naam hriday soi vat raja, Jis naam hriday tis pure kaja, Tis naam hriday tis kot tan paye, naam bina janam birtha jaye. Where through the naam you become this Raja. I guess what we're trying to get at is how this Simran, this naam, becomes a very strong manifestation tool for this path, though. I guess you can't. I guess where it all breaks down is where you try to manifest things that for the destruction of others. Then all of a sudden everything gets put to a full stop.
Gyaan Singh ji, we were talking about Ardaas. And I think what you mentioned about Ardaas is, in New Age terminology, it's an affirmation. What are we trying to manifest from it? So in Ardaas, and I think there's been loads of funny examples where, you know, people have asked for things like football teams to win Ardaas, or they've asked for, you know, like, I don't know, a bigger house or something crazy like that. Right? I mean, crazy to us because maybe we have a different understanding to those that are doing the Ardaas. However, what does it mean when you stand there and you know, firstly you recite the Guru's names as per Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani from the beginning of Chaddi Diwar, then you remember the Panch Pyare, the Char Sahibzade, and you go on to ask for Sikhi and Siddiqui, and you know, you ask for Bemukhi, to Rakh Lai, and then you continue on and you ask for all these things, or you say all these things, and then at the end you turn around and say, you know, I want to pass my exams or something like that.
You're so right. You literally in the span of 2 minutes you cover so much rich history.
Yeah.
You know, so much Shahid Gyaan, Khoon Kharaba.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Do you know when you do you know when you frame it like that?
Yeah.
You're going to ruin lots of people's Ardaas. When you're in the duality, you need to kind of shout out for help sometimes. And I think the Ardaas is that shout out for help, and is that shout out for help, whether worldly, like sometimes it is worldly, or whether it is spiritually, it's there for everything. And Sadhguruji says that really, if asking for something is wrong, who else are you going to ask, really? If we believe everything is one, even if you go ask somebody else, or you go ask the one, what's the difference? It's just your mindset at that time of, are you asking the one wholeheartedly with that concept in mind? And I think here in manifestation is actually having that base knowledge of what Sadhguruji was trying to make really strong within us was essentially Jagata Jyot Japani Sabasar. You're not going to believe anything other than that one Jyot. That even when you bow yourself down in front of your Guru, even though that your Guru may be in a human form at that time, you're bowing towards that Jyot.
There was something really interesting that came across my feed not too long ago, and it was a katha from Gyani Maskinji. And it was what you said, Gyaan, about joining people to the true name, and that true name being the Charakri Nam, the Bhava Vishnu Ha Hari Ga Gobind Rara Ram. And Maskinji says, when you sit down, and the person that you love the most in this world, if you sat down and started to write and contemplate all of their qualities and all of the things that you found beautiful about them, and all of the things that you love about them, you could probably fill a page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, maybe even write a book. But at the end of that book, you'd get to a point where they would be beyond description. You would have a feeling of not being able to describe them anymore. And that true name, that is the purest form of, and what we say, ascharaj, of wonderment. Just being in awe of this personality, of this
of your creator.
Of your creator, yeah.
There is still one segment left, which I hope that everyone's done their homework and got a fact for today.
The distance between the Earth and the Moon is just over 380,000 kilometers. And if you stacked every single elephant on Earth listen. If you stacked every single elephant on Earth on top of each other, they wouldn't like it.
What?
That's the fact.
How do you know?
No, but obviously, if you stacked that's like stacking every human on top of each other. The one at the bottom definitely wouldn't like it. I've got a question, and the question is, what was the first domesticated animal?
The cow.
How? How is a cow domesticated?
It is. No?
Yeah.
What do you mean
when you
by
say domesticated, do you mean
What does
more
that mean?
like you keep in a house as a pet?
Yeah.
Okay, then a
Oh.
dog.
No. It was a goat. First
I was closer to cow then.
The cow is a good guess according to that.
No, but okay. So the meaning of domesticated is tame and kept as a pet or on a farm. You don't keep a cow as a pet, do you?
But you just
People in
said it.
India
You keep on a farm.
Okay, I get the farm part, but not as a pet.
Define a pet.
And it's an extension of the family, right?
We're not having this conversation. What's going on?
A cow can.
Like you wouldn't like take a cow out for a walk, would you? I
but
guess you could.
You just said what you take a goat for a walk.
Yeah, of course. Goat herders. That's exactly what you do.
The concept of having a cow as a pet is completely foreign, but a goat is completely fine.
Yeah.
My stomach's hurting.
Goats are useful. They'll eat your grass. You won't need a lawnmower.
Oh yeah, cows don't do that.
Oh, that's true.
Literally the only thing cows eat
It's gross.
Oh man, this is proper tickled me, man. My fact now is, did you know grey hairs can naturally regain their colour when we feel less stressed?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I'm wrapping up. Chalo, Sat Sri Akal.
You're not going to thank everybody for listening and getting this
No.
far.
No.
Alright, bye.